Welcome to the BIP Ventures Extraordinary Pursuits podcast, a fascinating and inspiring journey into the world of venture capital and startups. Each episode offers masterclasses and entrepreneurial stories from some of the top minds in the innovation economy. Get ready to unlock new ideas and gain valuable advice for how to thrive as an innovator and an investor. Hi, and welcome to Extraordinary Pursuits. I'm your host, Rochelle Kuramoto. On this episode, we talk with Tara Flickinger, a partner and executive committee member at On Partners, a retained talent search firm specializing in VP, C-level, and board searches. Tara came to On Partners from Parker Executive Search, and before that, Goldman Sachs. She earned an MBA at the University of North Carolina's Kenan-Flagler Business School and a BA from Brown University, where she captained the women's golf team. Tara brings experience with environments that demand presence and presentation. And in this conversation, she shares wisdom gleaned through that experience, as well as tactical recommendations that founders can use to show up with confidence and clarity that motivate others to remember them and want to work with them. We are lucky to have Tara with us today. This is an episode not just for startup leaders, but for everyone who strives to articulate why they are the best one to solve the big challenges at hand. Let's get started. Hi, and welcome to another episode of Extraordinary Pursuits. I'm your host, Rochelle Kuramoto, and I am delighted to have our friend today, Tara Flickinger. Tara is joining us from On Partners. She has an incredible background in executive search and executive coaching, and we are going to have an amazing conversation today about finding your why, about speaking with confidence, and I am going to just ask Tara to get started by introducing herself and a little bit about what she does.
Delighted to be here. Thank you for having me. Tara Flickinger, as Rochelle said, I am a partner at On Partners, which is a retained executive search firm. We partner with companies who are looking to build their executive leadership teams, bringing in VP and C-level talent. I do a lot of work in the growth equity space. So I partner with venture capital and private equity firms who are looking to find talent for their portfolio companies. What else Amazing. Can I tell you?
Well, I think that gives a great deal of credibility to what it is that we're going to talk about today, because so many of the folks who are listening fall directly into the kinds of people you talk with. So, how did you get involved in talent and the financial industry? Give us a little bit about what that trajectory looked like.
Yeah, so it was a very circuitous path. I didn't grow up saying I wanted to be an executive search consultant. I sort of fell into it serendipitously as I navigated through my career. So I got my start in sports marketing. I wanted to be the tournament director of these LPGA events that I was leading or running. And they said, well, you need to get sales experience in order to do that. So I thought, well, I'll go get the best sales training experience I can, which was Pfizer at the time. So I pounded the pavement of Manhattan selling pharmaceuticals to the thought leaders and learned a ton, grew a thick skin for
I
sure.
Bet.
Yeah. And then wanted more and started in the part-time MBA program at Stern, only for the sponsorship and funding to be discontinued due to the financial crisis. Oh. So I ended up at Kenan-Flagler in North Carolina in the full-time MBA program there, thinking that I was going to do real estate, but again, financial crisis, difficult time, and ended up on the private wealth management path, given my sales experience. Because the idea was that, in essence, it's a sales job, and they could teach me the finance and everything. So I interned and then accepted a full-time role with Goldman Sachs. And I loved the idea of it because in essence, you're a trusted advisor to individuals, right? the challenge for me was that I wasn't super passionate about the markets and the finance piece of it. And so when I had my first baby, I thought, I can't be leaving her to do something that I'm not really that good at. I'm not passionate about it. I'm not making a difference. And I applied for a job with the College Football Hall of Fame, actually, to try to get back into sports. And the firm that was leading that search said, "Hey, well, have you ever considered search?" And I hadn't. And that was 10 years ago. And I, um, yeah, I joined that firm, was there for 5 years, and then I've been at On Partners for another 5.5 years. And I absolutely love it. And I'm able to be that trusted advisor. But when it comes to one's profession and finding really strong talent to build teams.
It's amazing. There are sort of three things that I've heard you say that really do a beautiful job of teeing up some of the things that are the reasons why I wanted to have this conversation with you. I think one is just developing that thick skin and just being able to present yourself and put yourself out there. But the other is sort of being open to possibility and opportunity. But the third, and probably the most important one, and where I'd love to start, is around really identifying that passion, that why. And, in speaking with you in the past, you've talked a lot about why it is so important for people to understand and be able to articulate and be comfortable with their why. And, I think it's interesting in the context of recruitment, but I think it's also very interesting in the context of founders and investors. So I would love to start our conversation there. Investors they're not just putting money into a business or a business idea. They're putting money into a founder as well. So talk to me a little bit about how that idea of communicating your why for founders to really grasp.
Yeah. So I agree with you that there are a lot of parallels in what I do and what I'm looking for in my candidates or in the candidates for my clients, right? And when investors are looking to invest in entrepreneurs. And I spend a lot of time on the why, what a person's why, because it tells me a lot about how they're wired, what's important to them. And so I ask questions like, why this opportunity? Why this company? Why now? Why you? And I think that's really important for an entrepreneur to communicate as well, because really the investors are investing in the person as much as they're investing in the company. And so the better, more clearly, more concisely, more passionately they're able to communicate their why, the more they're going to gain the trust of the investors and ultimately the investment. And so I encourage people, job seekers, entrepreneurs, executives alike, to really spend a lot of time figuring out their why, and not only what it is, but how to communicate it very clearly and effectively.
Yeah. Knowing that, particularly in the innovation economy, founders tend to be getting into this to solve a really big, really complex problem. What counsel do you have for a founder who, and also a founder who likely comes from a technology background and is not maybe as comfortable with the softer side of putting words into, a why? That may be a challenge for them. How do you suggest a founder, A, simplify the complexity of what it is that they're trying to do, and B, separate their personal why from the why of the company?
It's a good question. I think So if someone's going to start a company, right, and build something from scratch, they have to be very passionate about the the cause or the problem, what it is they're trying to solve. And I think if people speak that passion, then that can be really, really powerful. But I would break it down into piece parts. I oftentimes tell candidates to be able to communicate their superpowers. What are they particularly good at? What has gotten them to where they are today, and what will ignite future success? And so, if founders think of it that way, in maybe bite-sized chunks of superpowers, either their superpowers or the superpowers of the company, and communicate it in that sense, might take some of the pressure off. But really, founders are incredible people because they're risk takers, they're motivated and passionate and determined. And so, if they speak that truth, then a lot of this will be communicated very well to the investors.
That's awesome. So I kind of hear you saying, communicate why they are so uniquely qualified to do this thing that they are doing that is so big and so bold, and not to be afraid to do it honestly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, okay. That's amazing. But let's acknowledge the fact that a lot of founders, a lot of high achievers just in general, suffer from imposter syndrome and suffer from this idea of like, okay, I'm here, but can I really do this? You know, I'm sure you've seen this. How do you advise people to face imposter syndrome or maybe reframe it?
Yeah. So I haven't just seen it, I've experienced it myself. And it's
Same,
something,
same.
yeah. And it's something that I battle with. But I read a book that a former business school professor wrote, and it addresses this issue exactly. And basically, what she says is that if you think you have imposter syndrome, or if you're feeling, excuse me, if you're feeling imposter syndrome, the fact that you're feeling it means that you don't have imposter syndrome. And really, the imposters are the ones who don't think they have imposter syndrome. Because, like these founders, right? People who are successful in their career, they're reaching for goals and dreams and aspirations far beyond where they are. And if they're not meeting them, these feelings sort of creep in of, do I really belong here? Am I going to make it? That type of thing. Um, but if you're comfortable, then you're not reaching, right? So I would tell them that if you're feeling imposter syndrome, if you're feeling like an imposter, the fact that you're feeling that way means that you are not, and to keep reaching and to keep pushing, and you belong exactly where you are. And if you have to, fake it till you make it a little bit, right? I mean, sometimes you have to fake it till you make it.
Yeah. Is there a way that someone could, say they're experiencing some imposter syndrome, they're going into a pitch with an investor. Is there a way to tap back into that why to empower themselves, to sort of embrace that imposter syndrome as a good thing?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I think one's why is really powerful and often will differentiate um, people from others. And really, founders, what they want to be at the end of the day is to be memorable, right? They don't want to be just another founder because they're a
Yeah.
dime a dozen. And so I always tell candidates, and I would tell founders, that you want to differentiate yourself and be memorable. so that you're not just another founder, to be sticky, if you will. And you're sticky by doing things that are different and unique. You're not talking in big nebulous language, but maybe you're getting personal and telling a personal story or vignette or something that happened in your childhood that has ignited this passion and drive, or a problem that you have faced or your family members have faced, and you've come up with a solution. If you make it personal, then it's stickier, it's more memorable, and you won't be just another founder. You'll be Rochelle, who is super passionate, very clear about her why, and convicted in her business hypothesis. And I want to invest in her as an investor.
So, you have a founder and they're tasked with developing their pitch deck and developing their talking points and all of the ways in which they need to communicate the why of this business that's solving a big problem. But we also now understand that it's important for them to be able to communicate their personal why and to make themselves differentiated as a founder and memorable and sticky, because investors do want to invest in the person.
Mm-hmm.
What are some specific techniques or references that a founder could use to do this?
Certainly. So the first thing I would do is I would suggest that they go watch the TED Talk by Simon Sinek, which is all about
Classic.
one's why, right? Just to get them thinking. And then I do think oftentimes as a founder, especially if you're not a co-founder, if you're a sole founder, it can be very lonely. And so I'd encourage founders to have almost a group of champions or a group of trusted advisors, or maybe a mini board. It may not be a board of directors per se, but a personal board of individuals who you trust, who will be brutally honest with you, who you can present to and get feedback, and who will give you ideas and counsel on how to best present oneself. I also sometimes think it's good to have a buddy who might be going through something similar, and to challenge each other to come up with your why and how to be sticky and how to be differentiated, and to share with one another and to challenge one another and to practice with one another so that it becomes very natural.
Yeah, that's great counsel. And the good news is that those resources exist in abundance. Particularly in innovative markets like Atlanta, where you have incubators and you have accelerators and you have organizations like Entrepreneurs Organization, where like that is the whole point of some of those resources. Malcolm Muhammad joined us from the Russell Center, and he talks a lot about that ecosystem and how like the Russell Innovation Center is a great place for founders to find groups of people like that, for that empathy, for that give and take and the vetting and all of that.
Who are going through similar trials and tribulations, right? Who are like-minded, facing similar challenges, and can maybe share war stories, if you will.
Sure. Yeah. So, Tara, recognizing that founders are doing something really bold, and they might be doing it with a degree of imposter syndrome, and they are trying to tell this story about themselves and about the company and where it all comes together. We've talked about fake it till you make it, but how can founders show up with a balance of that confidence, whether or not it's honest, and some humility when the stakes are high and they are pitching themselves and this idea that they're trying to get funding for?
Yeah, I think it's a really good question, right? Trying to thread the needle on that really important balance of confidence, assertiveness, and humility, or, a clarity on how difficult what they're trying to accomplish really is. I think, and this is for women in particular, if they take on a ask for forgiveness mentality versus an ask for permission mentality, and come across very confident and convicted in what they're trying to accomplish and what they're looking for in terms of funding, they'll be in a much better place and resonate with investors much more than if they come asking for permission, right? I think it's a little bit of semantics in a sense, and it's a nuanced approach. But if a founder comes across very confident, very convicted in what their ask is and what they're looking for, versus asking for permission, they'll resonate more with investors. And so that would be my encouragement to founders, and especially female founders. Ask for forgiveness, not for permission.
Not for permission.
Mhm.
And I would imagine, as we have sort of referenced, having some people who are, sort of in a trusted inner circle to allow you to rehearse
Mhm.
so that you do come across as, you know what, I'm going to tell you why I'm great instead of ask you to believe me, or,
Oh,
something
see,
like
I
that.
like
And
that. Yes. Yeah, and gut check a little bit, right? It- one to gut check to say, hey, how is this perceived, right? Because when you present, you don't always know how it's perceived or received on the other side. And then two, they always say practice makes perfect, right? When you're little growing up. But I think the more that you do practice, the more natural and automatic it becomes. And that also comes across as a higher level of confidence than if you're struggling uh, with the presentation.
perfect. That's great counsel and a good reminder, because I think so often we want to be warm, we want to be likable, and so, that doesn't have to translate into meek.
Exactly. No,
Yeah.
and you don't want it to.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. That's great counsel. Thank you, Tara.
You bet.
Okay. Be assertive in
Assertive. Yes.
yeah. Okay. I love it. Okay. So as we close up, I want to make sure that, you know, people have a chance to hear your why last. What do you like most about working in the talent space?
I love my job. First of all, I love people, and I love figuring out what makes them tick, which is why I love to dive into the why. And I love being a trusted advisor. And so I like working with clients who have a need and finding talent who will help fill that need. And I'm changing lives on the candidate side, right? Because
Mhm.
next to one's family and their health, one's profession is really high up there in terms of significance in their lives, right? And oftentimes I tap people on the shoulder who wouldn't have otherwise known about this opportunity and present them with an opportunity that they maybe didn't think they could even pursue, and impact their lives tremendously, which then goes on to impact the companies. And so I love my job because I love the people, I love making impact. And I've tried to be a matchmaker outside of the professional world, and that hasn't worked out so well. So uh, the, matching companies with really good talent is very personally fulfilling for me.
That's just awesome. It's probably good that your kids know that you're not a great matchmaker. They know
Yes.
they're safe, right? Mom's going to stay out of their love life. Awesome. And where can people find you?
Partners.com.
Okay. That's
All my
awesome.
contact
Wonderful.
information is there.
Okay. Well, Tara, thank you so much. This has been a little bit of a diversion from so many of the types of master classes that we talk about on Extraordinary Pursuits. We spend a lot of time talking about things like taxes and go-to-market strategies and all of those things that are really important. I won't say that. I think it's fascinating. But I think that it is so often overlooked to just let a founder and their leadership team just take a second and remember that they're doing something that a very, very small percentage of humans ever do. And reminding themselves why they're doing it and the challenges and problems that they're solving. And to be able to articulate that in a way that others are going to come around them and provide support. That's why they're here in the first place. So thank you for being that voice today. We
It
really
takes a
appreciate
special person. I could never do it, so I applaud anyone who goes out on a limb, takes a risk to try to make the world a better place in some capacity. So kudos to all the founders out there.
That's a
when
perfect place
when
to
they
end.
make it big and they need great talent for their teams, I'm here to help.
On partners.com.
Yes.
Awesome. Tara, thank you so much. We appreciate you.
Likewise.
Thanks for listening to the BIP Ventures Extraordinary Pursuits podcast. Check the show notes on our blog for the resources we discussed. You can find Extraordinary Pursuits on your favorite audio platform. Be sure to subscribe to the BIP Ventures YouTube channel and connect with us on LinkedIn, X, and Instagram so you get all the stories, learnings, and ideas for ways to thrive in the innovation economy. And if you liked this episode, be generous. Share it